Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to tell you the fifth and the last part of Joseph's story. Today's story is called Joseph and His Brothers. I hope you've been enjoying these stories, and if you have, please do subscribe to this channel, press the like button and share the story amongst your friends. So let's get on with the fifth part of the story. Joseph and his brothers. Now in the land of Canaan, where Jacob, Joseph's father, still lived with Benjamin and with the rest of his sons, the famine was as great as in any other land. The year of hunger was terrible, and the years of hunger were terrible, and Jacob could not bear to see his family and his flocks go with no corn to eat. There is corn in the land of Egypt, said Jacob to his sons. Go there and buy some for us. So the 10 brothers mounted their camels, and with a string of asses following to carry the corn they hoped to bring back, they set out for the faraway land of Egypt. They took the same track which Joseph had been taken years before by the fierce desert traders. They came to the chief city of Egypt and were amazed at the great number of people there. There were far more people in the city than usual because so many strangers had come from the lands around to buy corn. The 10 shepherd brothers were taken before the chief man of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh himself. This man was Joseph. He was no longer a boy, as he had been when his brothers sold him as a slave. He was a grown man, and he was dressed in the Egyptian way. He was shaved, unlike his brothers, who all wore beards. He wore a great wig of black horse hair, and he dressed in the finest of white linen, with Pharaoh's gold chain around his neck. He had servants to wait on him. He had scribes or writing men to write down all that was sold to the men who came for corn. He sat in his great hall, looking rich and grand and powerful. The 10 shepherds gazed in awe at this great man. They had no idea he was their own young brother. They stood before him, rough shepherds from the hills, waiting to ask him the favor of food for their hungry families. Joseph glanced up. He saw the 10 men, and in an instant he knew them at once. He saw Reuben, Judah, Simon, and all the others he had once known so well, his own brothers. He saw them with joy and gladness, but he did not show this, though his heart turned over within him for gladness at seeing his family again. He had not forgotten that once they had been wicked. He meant to test them now to see if they had changed or were sorry for what they had once done to him. So he gazed at them with a stern face, and they trembled. They bowed themselves down before him. And Joseph suddenly remembered his dream of long ago. I dreamt that their sheaves of corn arose and bowed themselves down to mine, he thought. And here is my dream come true. My brothers are bowing themselves down before me, begging for corn. Joseph wanted to know all about his family. He wanted to know if his father was still alive, and if little Benjamin, who must now be a young man, was also still alive. He questioned them roughly, pretending to be angry with them, so that he might frighten out of them what he longed to know, without their guessing who he was. Where do you come from? Who are you? How do I know that you are not spies? We come from the land of Canaan to buy food, answered the brothers, afraid. We are not spies. We are all sons of one man. We are 12 brothers. The youngest of all is with our father, for he would not let him come with us for fear that harm might come to him. And the 12th brother is dead. Joseph was glad to hear that Jacob and Benjamin were alive. He longed to see Benjamin, and he spoke even more sternly to the 10 brothers. Now, to prove to me that you are not spies, return home with the corn and come back here to me with your brother Benjamin, that I may see if you speak truly to me. Leave one of your number here in prison, so that if you do not return, he may be punished for you. Then the brothers spoke amongst themselves in their own language, which was not the Egyptian language. They did not guess that Joseph the great Lord understood every word they said. Now we are punished for the wrong we once did to our young brother Joseph, they said. We showed him no mercy when he cried out for pity. We saw the fear and sadness in his eyes, but we took no heed. And now, as a punishment, this trouble comes to us. Then Reuben spoke to the brothers, Did I not say to you, do not hurt the child? And you would not listen to me. Joseph heard these words, and he was sad to see the brothers' distress and fear. He turned himself away from them to hide his tears in his eyes. He longed so much to see his father and Benjamin, and when he remembered the days of his boyhood, he could not keep from weeping. Joseph commanded the sacks the brothers had brought to be filled with corn. He also bade his servants to put into the mouth of each sack the money his brothers had given to pay for the corn. He took his brother Simon and bound him in the sight of the others, saying that he was to remain behind until the brothers came again, bringing Benjamin with them. The 9 brothers were glad to be safely on their way home again. They came to Jacob their father and told him all that had happened. We must return to Egypt. We must take Benjamin with us, they said. Simon we have had to leave behind, but see, we have brought much corn for our families and our flocks. They opened the sacks they had brought with them, and saw to their amazement and fear that each man's money was at the top of the sack. Then they were really afraid, for they thought that when they returned to Egypt, they might be accused of not paying for the corn. You shall not take my youngest and dearest son back with you, said Jacob. Have I not lost Joseph? And shall I lose Benjamin too? No, you shall not take him. Now, when Jacob and his family had eaten all the corn they had brought, famine was still at hand, and it was terrible to see the people's hunger. Jacob spoke to his sons, Go again and buy us food. Then we must take Benjamin, said the brothers. Unless we do, we shall get no corn. So at last Jacob consented, and bade Judah take the greatest care of his youngest boy. Take presents to this great man, said Jacob, and take double the money, and also the money that was in the mouths of the sacks, in case it had been put there by mistake. Then once again the brothers went down to Egypt, and this time they took Benjamin with them. He was a fine young man, and eager to see the great city of which his brothers had spoken so often. They came to the great granary, and word was sent to Joseph that the Hebrew shepherds had again come to the city. He commanded that they should be taken to his house, and he would dine with them at noon. So the 10 brothers were taken to the beautiful house belonging to Joseph, and they marveled at the lovely gardens, the wonderful terraces, and brilliant flowers. They were surprised to be taken there and afraid. They spoke to the steward of the house. When we returned home, we found our money in our sacks, they said. It was not our fault. We have brought it back with us. Do not fear, said the steward. I myself know that you paid for your corn. Then Simon, the brother who had been left behind, was brought to them. The servants gave them water to wash their feet, and the asses were fed and tendered. Then Joseph came. The brothers took the presents they had brought and bowed low before him. He stood and gazed at them, glad to see them all. Is your father well? He asked. Is the old man still alive? They answered, Yes. Then Joseph saw Benjamin and said happily, Is this your young brother? He took a long look at his young brother and said in a voice that almost shook, God be gracious to you, my son. And then, because he could not keep back the tears of sudden gladness that came to his eyes, he turned swiftly and went to his room. He wept for joy to know that his father was alive and that his beloved brother Benjamin was waiting to eat with him in the nearby room. He washed his face and went back to his brothers. Serve the meal, he said to his servants, and they put on the bread and meat. Joseph seated his brothers according to their age, the eldest at the top and the youngest at the foot. All the brothers marveled, wondering how he guessed their ages. They feasted and were merry. Afterwards, Joseph sent for his steward and spoke secretly to him. Fill these men's sacks with food, as much as they can carry. Put every man's money back into his sack, and put my silver drinking cup into the sack of the youngest brother with his money. This was done, and in the morning the 11 brothers, for Simon was now with them, went away. Then Joseph sent his steward after them with servants. When you come upon the shepherd brothers, say to them, How is it that you repay good with evil? Why have you taken the Lord's own drinking cup? So the stewards rode after the 10 brothers and overtook them. He accused them of stealing Joseph's silver cup, and they were amazed and very frightened. Indeed, we are honest men, said the brothers. We know nothing of the silver cup. I will search your sacks, said the steward, and he in whose sack I find the cup shall return with me to the city to be my Lord's servant. And the steward searched all the sacks, beginning at Reuben's. The cup was in Benjamin's sack, and when it was taken out, all the brothers stared in horror. Then they tore their clothes in despair, loaded their donkeys again, and went back to the city as fast as they could. They came to Joseph and flung themselves on the ground before him. I will only punish him in whose sack the cup was found, said Joseph, who longed above everything to keep his brother Benjamin with him. The rest of you may return to your father. Then Judah, who had promised his father Jacob to take the greatest care of Benjamin, came forward and spoke with tears to Joseph. "My father did not want this boy, his youngest son, to come with us," said Judah. "He had two favorite sons. One was killed, and this other is left. If any harm comes to Benjamin, our youngest brother, the old man will surely die. So let me stay here as your servant instead of my father's best beloved son. How can I go home to the old man and tell him such evil news?" Joseph listened to Judah's pleading, and he could no longer keep his secret. "Let everyone leave me except the shepherds," he cried, and the Egyptians left the room in astonishment, seeing that Joseph was weeping. They heard his sobs as they stood outside the room. His brothers looked at him, silent and fearful. "I am Joseph, your brother," said Joseph. "Is my father still alive? Tell me truly." His brothers could not answer a word. They were afraid. "This mighty lord of Egypt said and did strange things. How could he be their brother? Was he not an Egyptian?" "Come near to me, look closely at me," said Joseph. "Can you not see that I am Joseph your brother, whom you sold as a slave?" Then as the brothers looked closely at Joseph, they saw that he was indeed their own lost brother, not a strange Egyptian. Joseph put his arms around them, one after another, still weeping for joy. He saw their fear and wonder, and knew that they might think he would be angry with them for what they had done to him as a boy. But he had forgiven them long since, and now he told them so. "Be not grieved or angry that you sold me as a slave. God has sent me here to save your lives and many others in these terrible years of famine. I am lord of the Pharaoh's house and a ruler of Egypt. So now make haste and go to tell my father all this, and bring him here, and with his family and flocks and herds. There are years of famine still to come, but I will give you a fair land to live in, and you shall have all you want." So in great gladness of heart, the brothers returned to their own father, Jacob, and told him the strange and wonderful news. "Joseph is still alive," they said. "He is governor over all the lands of Egypt." Then Jacob almost fainted with joy, for he had never ceased loving his favorite son. He longed to see Joseph, and made ready to leave the land of Canaan with all his family and flocks and herds. And they went down into Egypt to Joseph, who welcomed them gladly, and was even happier to see his father than he had been to see Benjamin his brother. He took Jacob to Pharaoh, and then gave to his father's family the fair land of Goshen, where they might pasture their cattle and sheep and live happily together. There they lived, looked after by Joseph, whilst the years of famine lasted. When they were over, the family of Jacob remained in Egypt, where their children grew up in great numbers, becoming rich and powerful men. They were happy there, although they were strangers to the country, with different customs, and worshipped a god who the Egyptians did not know. And because of this, there came a time of great trouble fell upon them, and their friends were turned to foes. And that's the end of this story. The other stories that we will read will start tomorrow with a new one. I hope you enjoyed these stories. And if you did, remember to like, share, and subscribe. So have a great day and bye bye till tomorrow.